everybody should have this email. And like I said, it has a lot of information. Normally, I'm not going to go through an email with you guys, but I do want to go through some of the highlights of this, especially because it's probably all of our first time taking a Calc 2 exam online. So it is not going to be a handwritten exam. You are going to have to hand in your work, but the exam is going to be entirely on WebAssign. So let's kind of go through it. So it covers these topics. So basic antiderivatives, which would have been the review stuff we were doing at the beginning, U substitution, which we did a ton with the probably first 2 weeks. And then we've done a ton now for the past week and a half or so on area and volume, mostly volume with solids revolutions, but today solids with other cross sections, and then a couple kind of challenging problems at the end where we figure out how to apply the methods to known solids. And so it covers through that stuff. In the textbook, you guys know I don't refer to the textbook a whole lot, but if you do want to look at the textbook, that is covered in sections 5.5, 6.1, 6.2, 6.3. If you're looking at those sections, they probably don't cover things the same way we do, but they cover the same material that we do. And so your call as to whether it's useful to look at the textbook, but those are the official textbook sections. Video lectures, homework, WebAssign, and crowd marker are all included in the exam material. All right. Exam format, so it's going to be entirely in WebAssign. You're going to be timed for 90 minutes. And I think I said at some point we were going to make the exam shorter and time it for longer. That's no longer true because there's only the WebAssign part. So we're not going to do it in 2 parts. The exam's designed for 90 minutes. I don't think you'll need the entire 90 minutes, but you're welcome to take it, of course. I think it's probably bad if you're finishing in like less than 45 minutes. Does that make sense to everybody? That's probably not a good sign. You should probably be spending some time on this. So anyway, you do have 90 minutes. You can take it anytime on Thursday. You have to finish by 11:59 p.m. Eastern, so you should start by 10 just in case. You don't want to be starting at 10:30 and have it like cut you off a minute early. But I think it will cut you off right at 11:59 p.m. I'm not ignoring chat. I just saw it. Okay. How many questions? I believe, Andy, there's going to be 16, but I'm not entirely sure yet. Okay. I believe it will be 16. Some of them might be multiple part, like especially the area volume. And I do want to talk about one question type. Nick, it'll open at 12:01 a.m. So if you want to go in at midnight, you can take it Thursday morning at 12:01. But when you start, you've got 90 minutes and you're done. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So you can start it whenever you want on Thursday, but it times you 90 minutes from the time you start it. And then you cannot do anything after that. All right. So yeah, when you start the exam website and your time will begin, you must finish before the time limit expires. Submitting work. So right after you guys finish the exam, you have to take pictures of everything that you wrote during the exam. So you're allowed to have notes and stuff that you have from before. I don't need pictures of that. But anything you wrote while you're taking the exam, whether it's the full worked out solution, which you should for sure submit. Does that make sense? So like you should have a neat solution for each problem and submit that. But even if you're just like multiplying 35 times 29 and you like scratch that on the side somewhere, that needs to be there too. So anything you write during the exam must be submitted. So like what I would do is have your problems numbered like 1 through 16, submit that first. And then if you have a scrap sheet where you're doing like side calculations, that sheet you would take a picture of at the end. Does that make sense? But everything you write during the exam must be submitted. And to be perfectly honest, this is more, it's less for we're going to go grade your work, and it's more for if there's any issues with your answers, like with academic integrity stuff. If they see that you've calculated a 6-digit number and don't have any multiplication written out on your sheet, they're going to assume you used a calculator and you're going to be in trouble. Does that make sense? Or if you have a weird answer that like only Wolfram would give and you don't have work that represents that, then you're going to be in trouble. And so anyway, that's the idea. I don't anticipate any trouble, but the idea is you got to have your work supporting the answers that you typed in. Does that everybody understand that? Everybody clear? Okay, so that's the idea. We do need all your work. Everything you write during the exam got to be there. It is open book. but open note, open book, but no electronic resources. So you can have anything you want printed out. That includes all the handouts that I've given you. That includes your class notes. That includes if you've done homework problems, you can have all that. Like that's completely fine. It's just got to be on paper. So if you want to print things out, that's fine. If you want to write things down, that's fine. You know, we've said before, obviously, you know, not everybody has a printer, and that's okay. You don't have to have a printer, but you're welcome to write down anything you want. Example problems are allowed. Andy, that's a good question. Should you expect bad numbers? For the most part, no. But WebAssign randomly generates numbers. And so there's always a possibility you would get some weird combination of numbers that results in something bad. WebAssign also understands numeric equivalences, which means if you type in 1 over 19 times 3 over 37 and don't simplify that, it would take it. Does that make sense to everybody? I mean, I think it's easier for you if, you know, you're not typing 2 times 3 times 5. Like, you know, I think it's easier to type in 30 than to figure out, to leave it as 2 times 3 times 5. But if it's something ridiculous, like if it's 7 to the 5th power, you can leave it as 7 to the 5th power and it would take that. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. But for the most part, the numbers should be pretty good. But because of the algorithmic generation of the questions, because it randomly generates your guys' numbers, some of the numbers may not be as nice as we would like them to be. Is that fair enough? Okay. All right. So, okay, open book. So you cannot use calculator. You cannot use any internet resources, including Mathway, Wolfram, Simbo Lab, whatever there are. Microsoft, I think, has a new one. Photomath, obviously can't take a picture of the problem, have it show you how to do it. Can't do any of that. No electronic copies of notes or books. You are not required to take pictures of your notes, but you do have to take pictures of anything that you write during your 90 minutes. Does that make sense? Okay. No outside assistance. Obviously, you cannot have somebody working the exam with you. I do want to make it clear, though, that I understand some of you are in dorms and some of you are in places where it's not possible for you to sit in a room for 2 hours by yourself, and that's okay. You know, I think it's better for you if you can find a place where it's quiet and you work by yourself, completely fine. If you can do that. But if you can't, if somebody's in the background or your roommate comes in, you are not going to be in trouble for that. So that's not something you need to worry about. Now, if your roommate comes and works problems with you, that's a problem. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, but if, you know, we understand that people are doing this from home, people are doing this from the dorms, you guys are doing the best you can. So, you know, if you can't get by yourself for 90 minutes to take this exam, that's okay. Obviously, though, you cannot discuss the exam with anyone that's in the room. Does that make sense? Is that fair with everybody? And any concerns, you guys? This is our first time doing it this way too. So like, I'm trying to make this as painless as possible for everybody. Like I want, you know, you have to have a test and it has to be like a legitimate test where we need to make sure you actually know what's going on. But like, I don't want it to be something where you're like nervous about getting, like, we're not out to get you for cheating. Like that's not the goal. So like, we just want to make sure it's secure. And so if there's something that seems unfair, let me know. Or if there's something that you think could be better, let me know. And it may be too late to change for this exam, but I'm definitely open to that. Okay. All right. Any questions so far?
I have a question.
Sure. What's your question?
So the Wi-Fi at my apartment, it can be
Yeah.
a little flaky at times. What
Yeah.
should I do if it cuts out while I'm taking the exam?
Hopefully it will reconnect immediately. We're going to have the security settings where you're going to be able to get back into the exam. So you're not going to have to like contact me or anything. So, and you're not on Respondus monitor. So like you are not going to be videoed while you're taking this exam. So like, other than just a glitch out, then it should be fine. Like if it just goes down for a minute, you know, you're going to have enough written down to work for those 2 minutes or whatever. But like if it's an extended time, then we'll have to do a retest at some point later. And so let's try to avoid that. But obviously I know, you know, if there's a hurricane beside you, there's nothing you can do about it. It's fair enough.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fair.
But if you're out, you know, if you cut out for a half an hour and we lose half your test, we can't count that score. And then I'll work with you to figure out an equitable solution. Is that fair with everybody? Okay. I mean, I do think it's better for you guys, like, you know, don't pull the plug on purpose. It's better for you to finish the exam this Thursday, but if you can't, you can't, you know, there's nothing, you know, everybody do your best. Okay. Other questions about that? Okay. Okay, solution methods for problems. So we've kind of talked about this already. The methods have to represent methods that we've learned in this class. And again, that is not, you have to step by step show me the exact way that I did it, but it is, you can't use a double integral, which has been my example before, or you can't use a series to evaluate an integral. Like we've done nothing like that. Like if your u substitution looks a little differently from mine, that's okay. If you don't show every step on your u substitution, that's okay within reason. You know, just like a normal test, it's not any more scrutiny than that. What it basically means is if you've found some video that shows you this other method completely, or if you're on Mathway and it's showing a different way to do it completely than what we're doing in class, that's what's not allowed. Does that make sense? But it does not mean you have to show me every little step. That's not the case. Show what's a reasonable amount of work. You can look at my solutions. I show most steps, but every now and then, if you combine two steps in one, that's not what we're talking about here. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Answers much match work. So same deal. Like again, it's not like you have to show me every little step, but you have to show basically what's going on. So your answers do have to match it. Academic integrity. So if there is a violation, then you could be in trouble. Review session. So I'm going to offer two. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. One of them is going to be during this class. This is going to be open to everybody in 156, but I don't anticipate that being a problem. It's just going to be a bigger Zoom session. But it'll be from 12:30 to 1:30 and probably can stay after a little bit if people have questions, that's fine. And then again, from 8 to 9:30 Wednesday night, this is the Zoom meeting we always use. I want to talk about the formatting of a couple of the questions on Zoom, and or not on Zoom, but on WebAssign, so that you're kind of prepared for the way these questions are asked. But before we do that, does anybody have questions about the exam rules? Anything we're not saying? Does that make sense to everybody?
I have a question.
Sure. What's your question?
So for a lot of the earlier homework assignments, like I was able to do the problems without showing any work. Like I did it all in my head. If
Okay.
I did something like that on the test, would I get like marked off? Like if I didn't show any work?
So if it's a really quick U sub, probably not. Or like if it's a basic form, like the real early ones, like the real basic ones from Calc 1, that's probably okay. You should show some work on most U sub problems, at least say what the U substitution is and stuff like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Does that answer your question well enough?
Yes.
It's kind of a tough thing to know exactly. Like you're allowed to know that the integral of sine is negative cosine without showing me any work. Okay, you are not allowed to know that the integral of 9 over the square root of 16 minus 25x squared is whatever it is without any work. Does that make any more sense? Okay. Sarah, the review sessions will be recorded. I will definitely be able to get the early one posted by Thursday night. The one that ends at 9:30, it depends on how long Zoom takes to process that. So like, just sometimes Zoom's done in a half an hour. Sometimes I get an email 4 hours later. So I will post it Wednesday night if that's possible. But if I don't get it until like 1 in the morning, I'm probably not going to post it until Thursday late morning, early afternoon. And so I'll post it as soon as I can, but I can't promise the Wednesday night one will be posted before you take your exam. It just depends on when you're taking it, but I'll post it as soon as I'm able to. Is that fair enough? All right. Sorry, Zoom takes a little while to process it. And then once Zoom sends it to me, I have to, chop off the end in the beginning of the video. That's easy. But then YouTube actually takes a little while to process. And if it's an hour and a half or more, it might take a little while. So I'm not confident that that'll be up on Wednesday night, but I will try to get it up by noon on Thursday. That will be my goal, to have it up by noon on Thursday. So if you really want that review session, just wait until later on Thursday to take your exam. Okay. Other questions? But the earlier one I'll get posted on Wednesday afternoon. So we are not to simplify. Yeah, so you don't have to simplify a whole lot because WebAssign knows this. Yeah, so you've been doing that on your homeworks and stuff. Obviously I'd like you to simplify things just because I like that better. But you're correct. WebAssign will understand stuff. The question, if you're not seeing the chat, the question is, we don't have to simplify answers since WebAssign nodes is equivalent. That's correct. You do not have to simplify answers beyond what WebAssign would normally make you simplify. Okay. Other questions so far? Okay. All right. So then I want to talk about one question type in particular so that you are kind of prepared for how this is going to work on WebAssign. So as you guys know, we've done a bunch of problems with area volume where you draw the region and then you have to set up integrals in order to do that. There will be some problems where you have to evaluate the integral and type in a final answer. The problem with WebAssign for that is that when you set it up, you have to then evaluate it, and you have to evaluate it correctly to get credit because it's only checking the final answer. Does that make sense? And there will be 2 or 3 problems like that where you have to do an area or volume problem and you have to evaluate it completely. But we want you to have some points for being able to set up some of the integrals too, because that's the point of those. So like there's going to be a couple where you have to evaluate, but those will be easier regions. And you know, that is correct. We want you to be able to evaluate those. But on ones where it says set up, you're going to have some problems where it says consider the region bounded by whatever. Okay, and then there'll be 3 parts. Set up integral for the area. And then part B, okay, so there'll be like, you set up this region, right? Just like we always do. And then there'll be 3 parts. One will be set up the integral for the area. One will be set up the integral for revolving around this line, and another one for another line. And so here's the format of these WebAssign questions. So what it's going to say is it's going to give you something like, it's going to say f of x dx or a to b, or integral from a to b f of y dy, meaning you could set it up with dx or dy. I mean, it may be you're only supposed to use one, but in general, it could be either one. Does that make sense? And then what it's going to do is have 4 answer blanks. And it's going to have an answer blank for A, for B, for f of x or f of y, and for dx or dy. Okay, so this is exactly what it will look like. It'll say set up the integral for the area, or more wordy than that, but basically meaning set up the integral to find the area of the region. And so then you have to type in what the bounds are. Okay, so remember, A is the bottom one, B is the top one. And then what I want in here is what actually goes there. And so this is the one that's probably trickier. And this is the one that is worth by far the most points, because that's the main thing. And so if, let's say, this was the integral you're trying to set up. So if you do this on your paper and it's the integral from 4 to 7 of x squared minus 5 squared minus 2x plus 1 squared dx. So if like that's what you would write on your paper. So let's say that's the answer. I'm making it up. Let's say that's the answer. Then what you should type is you should type 4 here and 7 here. And then here, oh, my bad. There would probably be a pi on that, right? So we would do that. Here, you should type pi times x squared minus 5 squared minus 2x plus 1 squared. So that is what goes here. That should include pi or 2 pi. That question will remind you of that. It'll say, make sure to include pi or 2 pi in your answer, and make sure your grouping symbols are correct. So make sure your parentheses are right. Okay, but that is what you'd want to type in. And then here you would type in dx or dy. And in this case, you would type in dx. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, that's probably not what you type in for area, my bad, but that's what you type in for one of the ones down here. Everybody clear? For area, it probably wouldn't look like that. It wouldn't be pi, but you type in whatever it is that goes here. Does everybody follow that, what we mean there?
Wait, so what do you type in for dx or dy?
Just literally you type dx.
Okay.
Okay. And so like on this problem, probably what's going to happen is it's like a, b, and dx or dy will probably be the same for all 3 parts. You know what I mean? Because that doesn't usually change unless you're rotating something. Like unless you flip it for whatever reason. Like that doesn't change. The point is, okay, then you put this area function here, you put a volume. This would be what it would look like for the one that's this washer. And then the shell, you know, you might have one, let's say where it's going to be 2 pi integral 4 to 7 of, you know, x minus 3 times x squared minus 3x plus 5 or whatever, dx. Then, okay, you would type, for that, you would type 2 pi times x minus 3 times x squared minus 3x plus 5. And then in the dx, you know, you type dx, you type 4, and you type 7 for those answers. Does that make sense? I just wanted to kind of show you guys this before you see it on the exam for the first time. It's just, this is the way it's going to be structured on WebAssign. And so you want to use the parentheses there like that. But, you know, it'll give you the math pad, like you can use exponents just like you can on the homework for the integrals. We just haven't done any WebAssign homework on volume. All right, everybody clear on that? Any questions about that? The rest of the problems will be pretty straightforward as far as how to type things in. I think this is pretty straightforward on how to type things in. I just didn't want you to see it for the first time in the middle of your test. I just thought it'd be easier if you've seen it first, the way that's set up. But, you know, all the integrals will be just like the homework was, where it's going to give you an integral. You type in the answer. Make sure you use plus C. It's picky about things like capital X versus small x. So like if it's a lowercase x, make sure you're using x, small x, not big X. If that is something that you miss, like if you do miss a problem because you type capital X instead of small x, that's something I actually don't care about, but I probably won't see unless you tell me about it. And so like when you get to see your test, that'll probably be Friday, but maybe Monday. So either Friday or Monday, you'll get to see your test. I'll go in and see. And if you think, hey, all I did is type a capital X when it should have been a little x, tell me about that and I can fix that. Does that make sense? The worst I'll say is, sorry, something's actually wrong and here's what's wrong. I'm not going to like take away more points. So like, but if you do see something where you think it's a typo, let me know and I'll check. And if it is, then I'll give you the points back. If it's not, I'll say, hey, no, actually you missed it for this reason. You forgot the square or whatever. But I'm happy to look at that stuff with you guys. Okay. Any other questions about the exam? Okay. But the big thing on this is just make sure you type it in right. But normally we write it where we pull the pi out of the integral, which is fine. Just the way I had to set up this question, this took forever to set this up this way, but the way I had to set it up is you have to put the pi inside of here or the 2 pi inside of here. So just, you know, make sure you include that there. I think there's like a little pi button on the equation thing. I think it's easy to do, but do make sure you type in the pi. Okay. All right. Any other questions? And make sure you don't put dx on this line. You put dx on the 4th line, like on that separate thing. But again, that type of thing, if you miss it because you accidentally put the dx, then let me know. Zach, that's a really good question. And I was hoping nobody was going to ask it because I don't know the answer. Does anyone know whether it understands brackets? I have not messed with it enough to know whether it understands brackets. Anyone know? I will mess with it tonight. That it does understand brackets? Okay. Yeah, parentheses for sure. It would understand nested parentheses. Jordan is saying it understands brackets. So if you miss a problem because you put brackets, it's Jordan's fault. Kidding. I will double check that tonight. But I think Jordan is right. I think it understands brackets. and I'll mess with it. And maybe you guys should mess with it too. Like go in and practice small homework and see if it understands brackets. I think it does. I think Jordan's saying it does. I'll mess with it tonight and find out. I think it understands brackets, but I don't want to tell you for sure because I don't know for sure. All right, other questions? It for sure understands parentheses. All right.
I have a question, or like
Yeah,
quick
sure.
one. Will WebAssign tell us like if the answer is right away? Because I know
No, not on the test. Sorry. So you'll submit it. You will not know. I think the plan will be that it won't release your score even once you're done until everyone's done later. So like we'll release all the scores either Friday or Monday. I don't know that for sure yet either, but I do know it will not tell you whether you're right as you're going. Okay. That's not real fair. Plus if you miss 3 in a row, you're going to screw yourself up for the rest of the test. You don't want to do that. So like, yeah, so it won't tell you for sure until at least the end of the exam. Hopefully not till Friday or Monday. The plan is to wait till Friday. Can you go back to a problem after you move on? Yes. So you should be able to go back and forth through the test until you're done and submit it all at the end. Okay. All right. Other questions? There's no class Friday. Correct. So today is the last official class for the week. So today we talked about more volume. Let's actually kind of mention that. So tomorrow is review session. I would recommend that you come, but you definitely don't have to come to the review session. That will be question answer. So I will let people post questions in chat. I'll let you unmute yourself and ask questions. The questions can be, can you please work problem 2 from exam 1 in fall 2018? Or they can be, hey, can we do a problem where you have a cross section with a triangle? And I'll make one up like that. They cannot be, will you tell me what number 4 is on the exam tomorrow and work that one? That doesn't work. But like you guys can ask for specific types of examples. You can ask specific questions, whatever you want. If a question is completely, especially if it's like, I don't expect anyone from my classes would ask them, but like if some other instructor did something that's completely different than what we've done, then I might say, hey, this is not really relevant for this test. And I'm happy to talk about it later, but if it's not relevant for the test, then I'll probably say, hey, we're not going to do that one during the review session. But other than that, you guys can ask basically whatever you want. I won't specify, whether something's on the exam unless it's just really obvious. But okay, so the review sessions are tomorrow. You can come to those if you want. Thursday, I am unavailable. So it's not fair for me to be available once somebody has started taking a test on Thursday. I'll be checking my email periodically on Thursday. So like if you have a technical issue or you have some general question about the exam, I can ask that. But you cannot say, hey, Doug, can you show me how to do this integral on Thursday? That's for tomorrow. But once the test time has started at 12:01 a.m., no more math questions for me for 24 hours. Does that make sense? I think that's fair for everybody. Sorry if you're taking the test at night, but no class Thursday, right? Like we will not have class at all Thursday. You guys will take the exam Thursday instead. And then no class Friday. The only thing you do need to make sure you do at some point is the arc length and the average value videos. But that's what we probably should have done tomorrow instead of the review session. But I think it's better for you guys to have the review session. And these videos are like less than, I think one of them's like 10 minutes and 30 seconds and one of them's like 5 minutes. So like this won't take very long. And there's a worksheet on each of those with solutions that I'm not going to collect. So like you can do it anytime between now and exam 2. Plus nothing builds on these. So like you need to know it for exam 2 because one of them will probably be there on exam 2, but like you don't need to spend a ton of time with that. Okay. Like that would have been tomorrow's topic. Just, I think it's better to review for this test. All right. But yeah, so we're done as far as required stuff for this week. Like you don't have to do anything else other than take your test. You do need to take your test.
So there's no homework for this week then?
No homework for this week at all. So
Okay.
That's normal for me on test weeks. Like I give you guys worksheets. So there are worksheets, right? There's the volume in area 2, volume in area 3. Those are the big ones. So volume in area 2, volume in area 3. And then this more volume sheet that we just talked about today. So those would be the 3 big worksheets that we would be doing this week. You should be doing them. I'm not going to collect them. Normally on test week, I try to have nothing due because I want you to be able to figure out, I don't want you to figure it out on your own. I'll suggest what you should do if you want me to, but like I want you guys to be able to study for the exam how you need to study for the exam. So if that means you need to cram all these tomorrow night at 11, I think that's probably not the best call, but that's if that's what's best for you, then that's what you should be doing. Does that make sense? So whatever you need to do to study for the exam is fine with me, but these are the kind of new sheets for this week. Also arc length and average value, but definitely procrastinate on those. Okay, so normally I wouldn't want you to procrastinate, but do not do these until after the exam. If Friday, it kills you not to do calculus, you can do them Friday, but if I were you, I'd take the weekend off. Fair enough. All right, after this test, don't do any calculus until Monday is my recommendation. But if you would rather do these, then okay, have at it. All right, other questions? All right. Okay, that's all I've got for today.